Hello everyone, and welcome to a tutorial on the Inkstitch plugin for Inkscape. Today we're going to cover my process that I use in order to make pixelated patches. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our new document in Inkscape. So we're going to go File, I'm going to change the document properties. So my embroidery machine can do 4 inches by 4 inches, so I'm just going to quickly change my document size to that size. And then because we're going to be working with pixels, I'm going to start by setting up a grid. I'm just going to do new grid, and then that fills in everything exactly how I want. So right now my document's all set up. Then we're going to import our inspiration file. So I'm going to be using this prismatic shard from the video game Stardew Valley today. And what I like to do is zoom in, and then I see if I need to adjust the size of it. So it looks like each pixel is about one of the sizes of the pixels I have on the screen. Yeah, we're gonna go with that. It doesn't need to be perfect. As you can see, it definitely isn't perfect. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the pen tool to go ahead and trace out my various shapes that I want. So I'm going to make a layer for each of the colors, and then there's going to be the border around the prismatic shard. I'm going to be trying today to see if I can do this shading with different angled lines and see if I can get the depth that way. Otherwise, this would need to be 10 layers. So it's going to be slightly simplified, and I'm going to mess around with it from there. The reason I'm using the pen tool to trace out these shapes is because it's already going to be a path. If you use a rectangle or something like that, you'll just need to make sure to convert it to a path before you try and use the Inkstitch plugin, because otherwise it won't work. So let's get our layers set up real quick here. Okay, now that we have all of our layers set up, we're going to go ahead and start tracing our shapes. Because I'm going to want a different stitch in the darker blue than the lighter blue, I'm going to make 2 different shapes here. That's shape 1. So what I'm going to do here, now that I've got that, is I'm going to open up the stroke and fill, and I'm going to get rid of the stroke color, and then using the eyedropper, I'm just going to pull this blue. So now I've got my blue blob, and now I'm going to do the light blue shape. So ultimately, these shapes are going to want to be the same color, so it doesn't try and convince me to do a thread swap between them. I'm just going to make them different colors now for while we're working. And because I'm trying to do this with a different lined thing, I'm going to actually split the yellow in half. Okay, and now that we've got that taken care of, we're going to go ahead and do an outline for the whole thing using the pen tool. That's going to be just a line, and then we're actually finally going to use a stroke for that. So I'm going to make another layer for the border. And so if you have a machine that can handle the number of colors that you're ultimately going to need, so this right here is 10 colors. If you were getting this professionally made, usually they start charging you extra after 8 colors. My machine can only handle 1 color at a time. This would be rather time consuming to do. And then if I were to also do these borders, another 5 colors for the borders, that would be 15 colors. It would take a really long time for this patch. So I'm just going to do the borders as a single color. So we're just going to, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and hide the original. That way I can see any mistakes I may have made that I can fix right now. And then now with the original hidden, I'm going to go ahead and turn off snapping to grid. I still have snap to node on, and so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trace this. And this time we're going to leave it with no fill, and we're going to leave the stroke paint. I'm going to do this black, and we'll see how it looks. Right here where we have stroke style, ultimately this width will be how wide your border that gets sewn onto the patch is. I'm going to go ahead now at this point and select everything, and then setting it so it's got its parameters locked together, its scale, so we'll stay true to the shape we've got. I'm going to go ahead. Right at this point, I've been making all of my other patches at about 2.5 inches, and I've been enjoying that size, so we're just going to scale this up to 2.5 inches. This is one of the reasons we stopped using the snap to grid, because this scale now does not actually work with the grid anymore. Here we go, we've got all of this. And so now we can start making our different, figuring out our different fills, or how we want our threads to do. So up to this point, we've just been using the same normal tools in Inkscape. Now we're going to start using the plugin Inkstitch. Going to go ahead and select an area I want. This area here is going to be, I think I'm going to do diagonals for the dark, and then vertical lines for the stitching on the fill, and we'll see how that turns out. If not, this would be done, it'll be in 10 different colors, and so this way I'll be able to have the file set up to do with 10 colors if I need to or want to, and then if not, if I decide that that it works with the stitching, I can just go ahead and I'll have the file set up to do it with the stitching too. So here we go, so I'm going to save this real quick. So it's a good idea to save any changes you may have before moving on to playing with the plugins, because the plugins can cause it to crash. So we're going to start doing our fills. And we're going to start doing the fill for the blue. So we're going to go into extensions, down to embroidery, and then we're going to go to params. It's going to do its Python thinky thing. Okay, you can see it's automatically starting to draw in our image. So we were talking about having it be at an angle, so I'm going to try negative 240 degrees. So that looks a little too steep for me, so let's try 210. So this is how it's going to lay out your stitches. Your machine's going to lay out your stitches. I found having a 0.25 spacing between the rows is just a little too big for my machine, so I'm going to go down to 0.2. And then because as your sewing machine stitches, it will stretch or pull the fabric, I like to give a little bit of an expand, and 0.3 millimeters has been working well for me for my pixel patches, so that's going to be what I'm going to do. I like this preset, so I'm going to name it Pixel Fill. And then I'm going to go ahead and add this so I can use it over and over again. Now that it's added, I'm going to go ahead and apply and quit. And then this area and then this area are going to get the same, so I'm just going to go back, embroidery, params. And then I'm going to use last settings because it's faster. It's going to think about its life. Use last settings. Okay, and I'm going to want these to come in the opposite direction, so we're going to set different parameters for them. We're going to grab our pixel fill and load it, and then I'm going to get rid of this negative. So there we go. Then let's change this to pixel fill right, just in case we're doing this on, if this works, and I'm going to do it again on another patch. It'll be useful there, so let's add that, and then apply and quit. Okay, so now for all of these guys, I'm going to want to go up and down. So, embroidery. Oop. Wrong button. Okay. Just going to make that a little more even. Because we have a stroke here and there's no fill, when we go into our embroidery params, we're going to get it doing a satin stitch centered around that path for the width of the stroke. So if this was 10 millimeters, this would be 10 millimeters wide. My personal preference with the zigzag spacing is to have it at 0.3. It just gives it a little bit tighter, and that looks to me it looks better. So I'm going to be happy with that. So I apply and quit. And then because I'm trying to do this with threading, what I'm going to do right now real quick is I'm actually going to make sure all of these match up so the machine isn't telling me I need to swap colors between each one. And then if the stitching doesn't look good and I need to come back through and print it as, or redo it as different colors, I can just change these colors to a lighter color using hue saturation, and then it'll be hunky-dory. So here we go. So now for the moment of truth, we're going to go up to extensions. I'm going to go to embroidery, embroiderer. I'm using a Brother sewing machine that does embroidery, so I need to find the .pes. Then you actually need to copy and paste your directory info in. It doesn't have a way to get you there. And then it's going to make a PES with whatever your file name is. So we're going to click apply. If you have live preview, it'll show you how everything's going to stitch. I'm going to hit apply here real quick. So what we have here is we have a new layer that's been made, and it's made all of our other layers invisible, and it's our stitch plan. We can take a close look here, and if you were to click on any of these blocks with the node select, you can see all the nodes for all of these. So if you wanted to do individual tweaks to things for some reason, you could totally do it. But for now, that looks pretty good to me. And so from here, we're going to load the PES onto the embroidery machine, and we're going to go with it. So that's really, in a nutshell, how to quickly digitize a pixelated patch or image to make a patch with Inkstitch using Inkscape. Thanks a lot for bearing with me. Have a good one. Bye.